There comes a point in the life of the chosen one when everything shifts, not with fanfare, not with spectacle, but with an inner certainty that cannot be denied. It is not something taught or given. It is something remembered. Something deep and ancient stirs inside you, something long buried beneath the expectations of society, the noise of superficial roles, and the pressure to fit a mold that never truly held you. This is the awakening of your core masculinity. Not a costume to be worn, not a persona to perform, but a force that has always lived within you, waiting to rise. You begin to feel it not in your thoughts, but in your body. The way your shoulders relax into your frame, the way your breath deepens when you're aligned. The stillness in your gaze when you're no longer seeking permission to exist. Your masculine energy doesn't need to shout. It settles. It doesn't chase. It anchors. It doesn't dominate. It holds. And suddenly, women start noticing something different. They aren't drawn by flashy words or calculated gestures. They're drawn by the quiet confidence of a man who has come home to himself. This energy is not violent. It's not chaotic. It is stable, rooted, and magnetic in its stillness. You do not have to make declarations or chase validation because your energy speaks for you before your mouth opens. The world begins to respond, not because you've changed your strategy, but because you've changed your center. You've tapped into something that requires no performance, something that is felt, not explained. Women feel it first in the subconscious. They feel it when you walk into a room and don't need attention. They feel it when your eyes meet theirs and you hold the moment, not to conquer, but to witness. They feel it when you speak slowly, with presence, without performing. Your energy tells them you know who you are. And more than that, it tells them that you are not afraid to be seen in your fullness. That's where their curiosity awakens. That's where their longing begins. Your masculinity is no longer about control. It's about presence. It's about standing in your truth so fully that others begin to question what they've settled for. You become a mirror, not through judgment, but through embodiment. And the more you anchor into this core, the more you begin to realize that your power isn't in your image. It's in your essence. It's in the way you carry your high sexual energy without scattering it. It's in the way you choose when to act and when to remain still. That choosing is not passivity, it is mastery. You've entered the place where performance dies and truth is born. You no longer need to be the loudest in the room. You don't need to compete. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You are enough simply by being fully yourself. And this is where your journey truly begins. The awakening of your core isn't just the beginning of a new way of living. It's the return to a version of yourself that was always waiting beneath the noise. You are the chosen one. And your energy is not rising, it's returning to its rightful place, to its original power, not to prove anything to the world, but to move through it in a way that makes everything around you remember what real strength feels like. Once the masculine core awakens, the call is no longer to ascend. It is to descend into the body, into the moment, into the foundation beneath you. This is not the time for wings. This is the time for roots. Because high sexual energy, when ungrounded, becomes erratic. It becomes hunger without direction, flame without structure. But when you ground it, when you root it into your being with purpose and precision, it becomes something sacred. It becomes command. Grounding is not a concept. It is a way of moving, a way of being. It is the way your feet find the floor when you stand still with intention. It is the way you enter a space without looking for something to take, but ready to bring presence. It is the way you breathe from your belly, the way you hold your gaze without challenge or retreat. The grounded masculine does not fidget, does not scramble, does not beg to be felt. He is felt, because he is home in his own skin. You, chosen one, have begun to understand this. You felt the difference between movement born from stillness and movement born from scarcity. You've tasted what it means to walk into a room with full awareness of your power, and no need to prove it. Your energy is no longer scattered across 100 anxious thoughts. It's collected, contained, controlled. And that control is not rigid, it is alive. Women feel that control not as suppression, but as safety. They feel that you are not grasping, you are offering, you are not pursuing from lack, you are choosing from fullness. That difference changes everything. It shifts the dynamic. It allows them to relax into their own femininity because your masculinity is not performative, it is grounded. It gives them permission to soften, to open, to trust, because they sense you are not led by impulse, but by awareness. And this grounded energy also becomes your compass. It tells you when to speak and when to stay silent, when to pursue and when to walk away, when to open and when to observe. You are no longer tossed by every wave of attention, by every flicker of interest. You are solid, you are discerning, and that discernment becomes your power. Your high sexual energy is no longer something you discharge aimlessly. It becomes a tool of focus, of magnetism, of creation. Grounded energy attracts differently. It doesn't chase, it draws. It doesn't overwhelm, it stabilizes. And the women who are drawn to you now are not seeking games. They are seeking something real, something that can hold their fire without being burned, something that can match their depth without drowning in it. You have become that match, not through performance, but through presence. And every day you ground deeper into yourself, the more that energy refines. The more your presence crystallizes, and the more you realize this isn't about gaining something external, it's about revealing what was already within you, what has always been there, what was waiting for the moment when you would stop reaching up and start rooting down. You are the chosen one. And now that you've grounded, nothing can move you that doesn't first pass through your truth. There comes a time in the chosen one's journey when the power of energy alone is no longer enough. The pull of high sexual energy, the confidence of your awakened masculinity, the attention it draws, they are magnetic, yes. They create desire, curiosity, intrigue, but eventually the world begins to ask, can he be trusted with the energy he carries? And this is where the resonance of integrity becomes everything. The world doesn't just feel you now, it measures you. It listens not only to your words, but to your frequency. It doesn't care if you speak with certainty, it senses whether or not your soul matches your speech. This is the quiet calibration of life itself. This is the vibration of truth. You can no longer live a divided life. You cannot carry masculine energy in your eyes and deceit in your actions. You cannot offer stillness in your voice and chaos in your intentions. As the chosen one, you must be whole. Integrity is not about being perfect. It is about being aligned. It is about what you do when no one's watching. It's about whether your choices honor the man you're becoming, even when no one will praise you for them. It's about whether your gaze carries a promise you're willing to keep or a performance you'll quietly abandon. Integrity is the invisible spine of the masculine. It's what makes your energy not only powerful, but trustworthy. It is the difference between being desired and being respected. Women feel this distinction immediately. The world is flooded with men who have energy but not grounding, confidence but not character, charm but not depth. What sets you apart now is not just the gravity of your presence, but the purity of it. It's not that you are perfect, it's that you are intentional. You are conscious of your impact. You don't make casual promises, you don't offer false hope. Your words are not bait, they are bridges, and your body no longer lies when your heart says no. Integrity is not flashy. It doesn't seek praise, but it makes you unforgettable. Because every time you show up with clean energy, with honest presence, with boundaries, you respect yourself first, you become the rarest man in the room, the man who does not perform for love, but lives from it, the man who does not need applause because he has earned peace. You begin to notice how different your connections feel. They become more rooted, more honest. You find that your energy draws not just attention, but devotion. Not because you manipulated it, but because you embodied something people forgot was possible. You become the safe place where truth can live. And that safety, paired with your high sexual energy, becomes a kind of alchemy, a fire that heals instead of burns, a presence that ignites without destruction. When integrity and masculinity unite, something sacred is born. You become the mountain and the flame. You become the storm and the stillness. You become the kind of man others trust not just with their stories, but with their becoming. You are the chosen one. And your energy no longer echoes alone. It now resonates through the truth you live without needing to explain. Presence is no longer a passive state. It is no longer simply being here. For the chosen one, presence is now a weapon and a sanctuary. It is the sharpest blade in your spiritual arsenal and the warmest space in your emotional world. When your masculinity is fully awakened, when your high sexual energy is no longer scattered but focused, your presence becomes the very atmosphere that surrounds you. It's not something you use, it's something you are. In a world addicted to distraction, the man who is here, truly here, is a revolution. Your presence is no longer simply physical. It is spiritual, emotional, energetic. It speaks without a word. It watches without judgment. It listens with the body as well as the ears. You don't simply look at people, you see them. And because of that, they feel seen in ways they didn't know they needed. This is the art of presence, not performing, not controlling, but being so fully aligned with this moment that it becomes impossible to ignore you. Not because you're loud, but because you are awake, because you are anchored, because your soul is not spinning elsewhere while your body goes through the motions. And this presence becomes magnetic. Women who enter your field begin to breathe differently. They feel something open in them, something ancient, something delicate. Your presence tells them, you can be real here. You don't have to hide, you don't have to pretend. And the mystery of it is this: you do not say these things. Your energy says them for you. That is the gift. That is the power. You are no longer chasing connection. You are creating space for it. You are no longer seeking to be understood. You are inviting truth to emerge. Your presence becomes a kind of permission. It tells the world, I have arrived fully, and I am not leaving myself for anyone. And in doing so, you give others permission to return to themselves. But this presence must be protected. It is not a performance you turn on. It is a practice you maintain. It requires silence. It requires solitude. It requires that you stop leaking your attention across everything that doesn't matter. It requires you to say no, often. To preserve your energy like sacred fire, because when you are fragmented, your presence disappears. When you are distracted, your fire dims. But when you are focused, when your breath returns to your belly, when your gaze holds with softness and strength, everything changes. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to force connection. Your presence is now your introduction. Your essence is now your calling card. The ones who are meant for you will feel it before they understand it. And when they come close, they will not feel pressure. They will feel permission to rise, to soften, to awaken, to rest. Presence is no longer just a state of being. It is now a form of leadership, a way of changing the world without pushing it, a way of inspiring truth without speaking it, a way of living fully without ever needing to prove that you are. You are the chosen one, and your presence is now your power, not because it demands attention, but because it holds space for everything real to come alive in its glow. There is a sacred truth every chosen one eventually must learn. Your energy is not meant to be freely available to everyone. Your masculine presence, your high sexual energy, your unique gravity, these are not for public consumption. They are sacred resources, and only when you learn to honor them with clear, firm, and unapologetic boundaries will you discover the full depth of your power. Boundaries are not walls. They are invitations. They are not punishments. They are standards. They do not push people away. They reveal who is truly meant to come close. As the chosen one, boundaries are your spiritual perimeter. They are the quiet line drawn between what is sacred within you and what the world has no right to touch unless it is ready. You have learned through experience that your energy affects people. You've seen how women respond when you walk into a room grounded and alive. You've felt the way your presence shifts the atmosphere, how some lean in with curiosity and others recoil from the mirror it holds up. You now understand that your energy opens people, awakens them, draws them in, and that in itself is a responsibility. You cannot allow everyone to access it simply because they want to. You must choose who gets to come close. That choice is not cruelty, it is clarity. The man without boundaries is not generous. He is draining himself without direction. He is leaking his power into people and situations that cannot hold it. But you, chosen one, are done with that. You are no longer available to those who do not carry respect. You are no longer open to dynamics built on manipulation, games, or superficiality. Your masculine energy is too pure to be mixed with chaos. It is too focused to be wasted on those who are not yet ready to match your presence with depth of their own. You've come to see that saying no is not rejection, it is protection. It protects the life you've built, the peace you've earned, and the vision you're cultivating. Your boundaries are not just for others, they are for you. They are the way you stay centered, present, and powerful. Without boundaries, your sexual energy becomes scattered, reactive, susceptible to distortion. With boundaries, it becomes refined, it becomes clean. It becomes a signal that only the worthy can hear clearly. Women feel your boundaries long before you speak them. They sense in your stillness that you are not here to be accessed, claimed, or pulled into someone else's agenda. You are not here to entertain fantasy. You are not available for surface-level connection. You are only open to what is true. And when a woman feels this in you, she rises to meet it, or she falls away. Either outcome is a gift. You don't need to over-explain your boundaries. You don't need to justify your distance. The chosen one lives in such strong alignment that his presence alone communicates everything that needs to be said. And when you do speak, your yes is clean and your no is firm. You have learned that indecision is an energy leak, that people-pleasing is soul depletion, that being open to everything makes you good for nothing. Boundaries create space for the sacred. They allow your energy to remain potent, intentional, and magnetic. You are no longer reactive, you are responsive. You no longer give access based on pressure or charm, you give access based on resonance. And that kind of self-respect does not push people away. It calls the right ones closer, not because you need them, but because you've made space for something real to emerge. You are the chosen one, and your boundaries are not your defense. They are your invitation to be met at the level of your truth. There is a lie that was passed down through generations, a lie that said masculinity and emotion cannot coexist, that to feel is to be weak, that to soften is to be small, that to cry is to collapse. But the chosen one has uncovered the truth. You have begun to understand that real strength isn't found in hiding emotion, it is found in holding it, not in silence, but in sovereignty. Your masculinity is not brittle, it is flexible. It bends without breaking, it feels without flooding. You are not a wall, you are a mountain. And even mountains tremble beneath thunder. Even mountains have rivers running through them. What sets you apart now is not that you are unemotional, it's that you have learned how to feel deeply without being consumed. That is the new strength. That is the awakened masculine. Emotional strength means you no longer push your pain into a corner to avoid appearing soft. You don't avoid love out of fear of losing it. You don't armor yourself against vulnerability. Instead, you meet all of it with the full presence of your being. You have discovered that the more honestly you feel, the more grounded you become. You've learned to sit with grief until it teaches you something. You've stared down rage until you uncovered what was hurting underneath. You've held joy without the need to cling to it. This is emotional mastery. This is true presence. Women feel this emotional strength in you. They feel it when your silence isn't avoidance but depth. They feel it when your steadiness isn't numbness but anchored feeling. They feel it when you open your heart, not as a performance, but as an invitation. Your openness says, you don't need to heal me. You don't need to rescue me. I have met my pain. I have met my fear. And now I choose you, not from lack, but from wholeness. This kind of strength cannot be faked. It cannot be taught in words alone. It is earned in solitude. It is forged in discomfort. It grows slowly over time as you choose again and again to stay present when others run, to feel what others suppress, to speak when others collapse into silence. It grows as you become emotionally fluent without losing your edge, as you become gentle without becoming soft, as you remain real through every high and low. Emotional strength does not mean you cry on command or share every story. It means you own your story without shame. It means you know when to open, when to hold, when to listen, and when to walk away. You do not need saving, and because of that, your love becomes safe. Your eyes become places where others can finally rest. Not because you are emotionless, but because you are emotionally sovereign. The man who cannot feel is not strong, he is starving. The man who feels but cannot hold it is not weak, he is learning. But the man who feels and remains centered, he is the one the world has forgotten and now longs to remember. You are that man. Not because you've conquered emotion, but because you've merged with it without drowning. You are the chosen one, and your emotional strength is no longer hidden behind silence. It is woven into every word you speak, every moment you live, and every heart you choose to open. There is a sacred force, often overlooked, that separates the unrefined from the mastered. That force is patience, not passive waiting, not avoidance cloaked in calm. True patience, the kind wielded by the chosen one, is not weakness but supreme control. It is the full awareness of one's power, paired with the deliberate choice to let things unfold at their own natural rhythm. This is the domain of the awakened masculine. And as your high sexual energy continues to magnetize attention, you begin to understand that without patience, it becomes a fire without a container, intense, wild, and destructive. But with patience, it becomes a forge, a crucible through which strength and discernment are tempered. Patience, for you now, is not about delay, it is about wisdom. You no longer rush to speak because silence reveals more. You no longer chase connection because alignment reveals itself in time. You no longer burn quickly for shallow rewards because you felt the weight of what it means to wait for something real. You understand that the most powerful energy in the room is not the one trying to be seen, but the one that's completely unmoved by urgency. That kind of stillness, that internal spaciousness, becomes your signature. This patience rewires everything. In the past, you may have responded quickly to interest, to attention, to invitations, perhaps out of desire, perhaps out of loneliness, perhaps out of the need to prove something. But now you respond only when it feels true. You no longer reward inconsistency with access. You do not rush to prove your worth or explain your value. You have cultivated a life that is full enough, rich enough, and peaceful enough that anything added must amplify, not distract. Women notice this shift immediately. You no longer chase, you invite. You no longer cling, you observe. You don't lean forward energetically, you stand still and let things reveal themselves. This is not detachment, this is mastery, because you've come to know that what's meant for you never requires chasing, it only requires alignment and timing. And the man who understands timing is the man who commands the moment without having to control it. Patience also shows in the way you carry your desire. You feel it fully. Your high sexual energy pulses through you, hungry and alive, but you are not a slave to it. You don't allow your hunger to blind you to red flags or dull your discernment. You know that just because you want something now doesn't mean it is meant for you now or ever. And this inner pause, this sacred delay, gives you clarity that most men never reach. You see people more clearly. You hear what's not said. You sense when energy doesn't match intent, all because you are willing to wait, to breathe, to listen deeply. Patience makes your presence feel safe. It tells others, this man is not in a rush to use me, to fix me, to claim me. He is here to meet me, when and if I am ready to be met. That kind of grounded stillness activates the feminine like nothing else, because it allows her to unfold in her own time, to trust her own rhythm, knowing she won't be rushed or judged. You are the chosen one, and your patience is no longer hesitation. It is precision. It is the clarity to wait, not out of fear, but out of power. The understanding that anything born from rush rarely lasts, but what emerges from stillness is often eternal. As your masculine presence becomes undeniable, and your high sexual energy evolves into a current that influences every room you enter, a new responsibility arises: leadership. But this is not the outdated model of leadership that commands with volume or demands submission. This is embodied leadership, anchored in compassion. The chosen one does not lead to control, he leads to liberate. Compassion is not weakness. In the hands of a master, it is an edge sharper than any sword, because it reveals a man who can see the truth and still choose love. It shows that even though you've cultivated power, even though you've disciplined your desires and refined your instincts, your heart remains open. And this openness is what truly sets you apart now. The world is full of men with hardened hearts who believe they must dominate to be seen. But you feel and still remain unmoved. You lead, not because you must, but because your energy naturally organizes the chaos around you. Compassion starts with how you hold yourself. You no longer criticize your younger self, you honor him. You no longer reject your past mistakes, you learn from them, alchemize them into insight. And because you've extended this kind of radical compassion to yourself, you can now extend it to others. You don't expect perfection from anyone, but you do expect truth. You lead with acceptance, but never enable weakness. You offer space to grow, but never abandon your standards. This creates a sacred balance that few can achieve. Women feel this balance in your presence. They sense that you will not collapse into them, but you will not tower over them either. You are there to meet, not to mold. And in a world where so many feel unseen, that meeting becomes healing. You are no longer the man who fixes. You are the man who witnesses with strength. And in that witnessing, you give others the courage to be honest about who they are. Compassion also shapes your choices. You lead with your energy. You speak when needed. You offer when appropriate. You don't push yourself into spaces. You don't speak over silence. You let things unfold, and when you act, it is clean, not performative. Your leadership flows naturally because you are deeply connected to humanity, not superior to it. And those who encounter you feel this immediately. Your touch is strong, but never forceful. Your words are clear, but never cutting. Your eyes hold power, but never threat. That balance is what creates trust. You've become the kind of man others look to, not for answers, but for examples. You lead by living the very truth you invite others to explore. You don't tell people how to evolve. You simply become a living invitation to rise. And because you lead from love, not from fear, not from pride, your leadership becomes undeniable. It's not about titles or followers, it's about the lives you change without even realizing it. You are the chosen one. And now, your leadership is not loud. It is magnetic, not aggressive, irresistible. Because you have become a man who walks in his strength and wields his power, not to command obedience, but to awaken freedom in others. And that kind of compassion is no longer rare. It is revolutionary. There is a sacred moment in the journey of the chosen one where the external world begins to fade into the background, not out of disinterest, but because you have come to value what few are brave enough to face, the mirror of your own soul. It is here, in this inner stillness, that reflection becomes your greatest teacher. No longer moved solely by desire, ambition, or attention, you begin to seek truth within, and from that truth, everything else begins to align. Reflection is not a retreat. It is not a pause in your progress. It is the place where your energy, your masculinity, and your high sexual presence refines itself. The fire within you no longer burns outward to be seen. It burns inward to illuminate. You begin to see not just who you are, but who you have been, and more importantly, who you are becoming. This is the space where maturity crystallizes. It is the moment when you stop reacting to the world and start responding from wholeness. In your reflections, you see where you have misused your power, where you have leaked your energy into unworthy spaces, where you gave too much to people who could not hold your presence. You don't shame yourself for it. You learn. You honor your growth, because every mistake has been a lesson, every fall a forging, every heartbreak a deeper reminder of what matters most. You've stopped carrying regret and started carrying wisdom. You no longer define yourself by how others perceive you. You define yourself by the integrity of your reflection. When you look into the mirror now, you don't just see a man, you see a frequency, a vibration you've been cultivating through silence, through struggle, through sacred choices no one else witnessed. And that energy can no longer be shaken by fleeting attraction or momentary approval. You are rooted too deeply now. You are too awake to be seduced by anything that isn't aligned with your soul. Reflection also makes you precise. You become more aware of what you bring into spaces. You don't give compliments to flatter. You speak only when your words are clean. You don't flirt to fill time. You connect when something real is present. You don't give your presence to be liked. You give it when your intuition says, "This is safe, this is sacred, this is worthy of my full attention." That is the strength that comes from inner clarity. You no longer chase. You attract by knowing who you are. And in this reflection, you also begin to realize how deeply you've shifted. You no longer carry the same questions. You no longer wrestle with the same doubts. You've grown more patient with others and more disciplined with yourself. You've stopped needing the world to affirm your masculinity because it is no longer something you do, it is something you are. Your walk, your voice, your silence, your laughter, it all flows from a place of completion, not performance. This is what makes your energy feel so different now. You've become a mirror for others, not because you tell them who they are, but because your presence reflects what they've been avoiding. Some will feel drawn to that clarity, others will run. Either way, you stay still, unwavering, watching, allowing them to choose. Because you no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. You've already become it. You are the chosen one. And your reflections are no longer questions, they are revelations. They don't just show you who you are, they remind you of who you were always meant to be. The final stretch of this path does not lead you to a throne. It doesn't end in applause. There are no medals waiting, no crowd chanting your name. Because true mastery, the kind the chosen one reaches, is quiet. It is internal.